Boom.
Hey there, Shopping Maniacs here. Listen to another episode of the Shop Talk Show, a speedrun edition of the Shop Talk Show. I kind of have some meetings that I maybe have to go to, so we're going to kind of figure
That's how you know we're...
Yeah, we're not carving out days for this. We're like bing, bong, bing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can talk about our real-world experience as developers. Absolutely. We're both just busy as, what do you say, bees in a flower patch?
Rats in a sock.
Sure.
You know, Chris, I listen to the podcast occasionally just to see how we're doing, quality check. And I say the word like too much, Chris, and I'd like to stop. Oh, shit, I said it again. I want to stop. Do you think I could? Hypnosis is a viable option.
Yes. Did you go to one of those schools? I don't know if the school is the factor, but I think we're about the same age when it was very popular to have a school assembly where a hypnotist came and did a bit of a hypnosis show.
Yeah.
Did you have that once, or do you
I'm
remember?
sure we had that, and I remember on vacations and stuff, like the hotels, like a little party in the plaza sort of thing. They would do a hypnotist would show up and make people.
Now looking back on it, I was like, oh, that was amazing. He could make somebody balk like a chicken or whatever. And he always said you can't make him do anything you would like viscerally wouldn't want to do. You can't make two people make out or whatever. But they were awfully suggestive. And not to mention what they do is kind of put you half to sleep, and you're sitting there in your chair just totally leaned over, practically drooling on the person next to you. That to me is as amazing what they're able to do with that. It seems like a true superpower. This hypnosis stuff. And my grandpa always claimed he quit smoking via hypnosis.
Oh, really?
Man, he just went, and then he never smoked again after that day. It was like just the hardest line cut ever.
I'm going to see a hypnotist. I'm going to get rid of it. And then acupuncturist too. And the acupuncturist is going to stab it out of me. For sure. Or I build an Arduino robot that every time it hears the word like, it like kicks me in the groin or something, under my desk. That would be a good one. I could build that. Sort of like a Mythbuster creation.
Let's do it all. Let's go big. We're going to go, lipo to all the things.
Yeah. Just get hot beach bods, and then I'm going to start my TED Talk circuit. Where no one says like.
Demi Moore did too. Whatever, put some black stuff in our system. And I didn't actually see the movie, but I heard she didn't win the Oscar for it. The Substance.
Okay, I didn't.
Kind of a horror deal that she. Okay, let's skip past that then. Sorry.
I did learn about banana Botox. Apparently, you can rub a banana on your face and it has Botox-like effects. It doesn't actually work, but that's something people on TikTok tell you that works.
Gosh, I have so many thoughts. I'll tell you what does work.
We can go on
shoulders on the face, and the beard kind of takes care of that. The white flake stuff. Just you don't have to go expensive. Head and Shoulders is like $3. I'll tell you though, my dear stepdad went to his 80th birthday party recently in Wisconsin. Surprise birthday party. We pulled it off. It was very endearing, very fun. Lots of people from his life there, from work life, and he's like a golfer. There's those people there, old friends.
Is it the kind of town or community where people don't leave, or people are kind of always around, sort of thing?
And more specifically, our family is pretty don't leave-y, except for me. Sorry about that, everybody.
There's got to be a black sheep. Need to have a black sheep. Yeah,
sure. But I, because they never see me, I'm also perfect. So
I am also that black sheep. Everyone lives within like a normal amount of hours of each other, and I live in Austin. So
he is self-admittedly quite into conspiracy theories. So if they're almost like prefers conspiracy theories, which I find to be actually rather common. That it's not that there's one particular conspiracy that you happen to believe in because despite all the evidence to the contrary, you're pretty sure that the conspiracy is actually the truth.
Like how Ivanka Trump is a necromancer and controlling her father's dead body.
Exactly.
We all know that's true.
Right. And I don't like I hate to, I'm not going to give any of this any credibility, but once you start down that road, I think the next conspiracy theory that you run into just seems all the more likable. And I think the reason you like them is because you mentioned TikTok and that type and wrong information. They have a certain feel. There's a certain vibe to the conspiracy video thing that's just kind of hits you the right way. You like the vibes of it. I listen to a video like that and I just want to puke in my mouth. You know, like it's so obviously manipulative and just devoid of real information or whatever. But I kind of get it, at least that hits the right person with the right vibes. So we're watching one, and this is tangential, but there's these really bizarre TikTok videos where you take an egg and then you rub a bunch of toothpaste all over the egg, and then you let it sit there, and then you peel the stuff off the egg, and then what's on the inside is it turns into like a bouncy ball, essentially. Like it congeals in a special way that you can just like play with the inside. So there's lots of these videos, but they're very unhinged. They don't ring true, you know. It's a lot of they tend to have a kind of Asian, wow, what, yeah, dooka, you know, like look, ball now. It's like an eyeball.
Interesting.
To the point where we were doing it. We're home visiting, and we got out an egg, and we put toothpaste all over that thing and cracked it open, and it does nothing to the inside of an egg, as you might
poured
suspect.
out. Yeah.
Just absolutely. And then we thought, we used the wrong toothpaste, you know. We had the blue kind, but you kind of need the gritty, old school white kind, you know. So we repeated it with that.
Cooks it.
It absolutely does nothing to either kind of. But then so we look up like, what's the deal with these egg videos? And then there's like a guy on YouTube who, to his credit, was trying to make the videos relatively entertaining. This, like, you know, those crazy videos about the egg and the toothpaste? That is not a thing, you know? But we were watching it, and there was a little bit of like, oh, I can't watch this, you know? Like the vibe was wrong. It didn't have the conspiracy. It didn't have that unhinged feeling to it. The person who, when I was watching, I was like, look at this guy's great. He made a great video, you know, explaining the real science of what's going on here. And it's like, if you want to get somewhere close, you know, you could use these things instead, you know, trying to just deliver the actual information about this. But that wasn't hitting. That was like, I'm not giving up. We're gonna make this damn egg bounce with
the
toothpaste.
Toothpaste is wrong. That's what's wrong. Yeah. This guy doesn't know. Yeah,
and it's okay. We were just having fun. It's just toothpaste. Like most of this stuff is relatively harmless, but of course your brain wants to extrapolate. Like, you know, this is what's wrong with the world. Truth is ignored.
Do you think you need like a alternate conspiracy theory? Like it doesn't work because cosmic rays are beaming down on us and preventing the toothpaste from interacting with the egg. And
so you got to just
the
totally
way they
double down on
TikTok did it is they had a shield that prevented the cosmic rays, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Like turn that into a conspiracy. Maybe that's one way.
Or you package up just regular old truth in that same vibes where you're like, this is crazy. Nobody will tell you this. Nobody will tell you this. I am the only one out there.
The government doesn't want you to know this.
Yeah,
what I'm
your
about to
dentist
tell
will
you.
be so happy with it. Yeah, absolutely not. I'll tell you what. You take a little tiny piece of string. You find the smallest piece of string you can, and you got to do this every day. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And you put it in between each of your teeth and rub it up and down. Each time. I know it sounds crazy. This is insane.
So
you
I'm
put
just
it up in between each of your teeth, but you do it every day. It works even better if it's right after you eat.
Okay.
And then you go to the dentist, and the dentist will be like, your teeth are perfect. Yeah, I've never seen teeth better than this, ever. Like, the dentist will love you.
I don't need to pay a dentist? I wouldn't have to go to the dentist as often if I, like, do this?
Absolutely not. You know, that 6 monthly visit.
That's just a
go
scam
every 2 years.
by the ADA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it's not easy to find little string like this, but if you can get your hands on some really thin string.
I think I've seen it at Walgreens, kind of on one of the bottom shelves, you know. It's under old timey medicine, you know. That's always my favorite is when they're like, the Jesuits did it, and you're like, oh, because those guys are known for
truly amazing. Or the caveman diet. That's my favorite too. Like, cavemen lived to be 20. So
like odds of getting eaten by a bear soup's high. So
but apparently
due
they
to
had
malnutrition.
Cardio,
They were shredded, bro. My wife and I were talking on this TikTok thing and facts and things like that. Is, you know, there was a situation. My daughter went to a cheer camp or cheer competition. She won it. That's cool.
She won. Yeah.
She won. So that's awesome. So it's in Dallas. 30,000 people attending. Like enormous, right? And it's like Saturday, the midday. I get a text from my wife. They want, Emmy's team won. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like, way to go, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it once they get out of the convention center. And then the next text I get 10 minutes later is we are in lockdown. There's an active shooter. Oh, and it's just like,
God,
that's bad for like, and your worst thoughts are going through your head just about like what's going on.
Yeah, of course. Just terrible.
So, I'm looking for news reports, Dallas news, active shooter, downtown, and nothing's showing up. And then I'm looking for, so I go on Facebook, right? And I'm look for like NCA active shooter. And of course, there's a lot of reports there, just like active shooter. Oh, we're in lockdown. There's an active shooter here, but and over like hour of this, my wife gets out safe, gets back to the hotel. The hotel's in lockdown too. The news report, and like during all of this, like you see these videos of like kids just rushing out, like TikToks of like kids just like rushing out from the thing after the shots or whatever happened. And like I hear stories about kids running across 10 lanes of traffic to like get away from the building at this event. These are like on average 12-year-old girls, like just running for their lives, right? And it's just and parents, who came with them. It's a horrifying event. Have friends who are like crouched behind a semi for like an hour, and it's awful. And in chaos, people getting trampled and separated from parents and teams and stuff like that. It's awful. But a news report comes out, and the real cause of the I guess the active shooter was actually two cheer parents fighting at a hotel across the street, and they knocked down like a metal, like a pole, like a, little like, what are those movie theater poles or whatever, or something like that. So
somebody hears a crack. So they see this fighting and they hear a crack and
they hear a pong pong, like pop pop or whatever,
Somebody's like, gun!
People yell gun. It's like yelling fire in a crowded room, right? And of course, America's primed for this whole, active shooter situation.
Oh, yeah. Can barely blame them. I would have thought this.
Dude, somebody says it, I'm going to trust them, or like I don't have to not trust them.
Why roll the dice?
Yeah,
show me the
dice. Yeah. So it's just that's just an example of like disinformation spread quick, and then they're talking about it afterwards, and it's like the news report said it's nothing, and then a friend was like, yeah, but TikTok said it is something. And so there's this thing where it's like, you almost don't believe the news. You believe the immediate thing. Does that make sense? Like you're like, this is the current news, and I deleted all my Twitter accounts, so I couldn't even check Twitter for it, but that was like my instinct, like go on Twitter, find out what's actually happening, like get eyewitness accounts or whatever. And, it's this like, people are trusting TikTok because the speed of information is so fast. The heartbeat of the internet is there or whatever. And rather than like taking a minute to chill out and think about it, there's, I don't know. I saw this. Do you watch those Subway takes videos on those? They're like TikToks.
I don't know what you mean, Subway take. No.
It's this guy, Kareem, and he's like a funny guy, but he goes on the subway and he's like, tell me your hot take. And somebody will be like, restaurants where the vibe is cooler than the food is better than the food need to tell you so, something like that, just like if the vibe is good, but the food is crap, they have to tell you that before you go in, and he'll be like 100% agree or 100% disagree or whatever, and just let them kind of cook on their opinion, just let them either embarrass themselves or try to convince him. Otherwise, generally it's pretty funny. A lot of comedians do it. But this one guy was just like, we shouldn't have hot takes, which is kind of funny for the show, right? But his whole thing was, none of us know in like 1 minute. The internet pressures us to be an expert on a subject in 1 minute, like a State of the Union address, for example. We got to 1 minute later have what we think about it, like that's not how the human mind works necessarily. Like, and we probably shouldn't trust people who do like have an immediate opinion. We should let people like think about things and matriculate and percolate ideas.
Yeah, there was a time where if somebody had an opinion that quickly that culturally they would have been like, whoa, bro, why don't you think
no it's this I think it's this weird perversion, or I don't know, like this weird like we all appreciate somebody who's certain. This is my hot take here. Again, I'm doing it now. But like, I think we all appreciate somebody who's certain. You're just like, wow, that guy like believes something. That
right.
They really
Nobody
know
wants
their stuff.
Captain Wishy-Washy, right?
Yeah. And I think, no one wants to be like, a guy who goes, yeah, it was the Democrats or whatever is way more believable than like somebody who says, I don't know, man. I mean, you'd have to look at all the data and it's kind of build a chart, and no one wants to believe that guy, So
yeah, there was I do remember some certain events and times where like having a nuanced opinion was a little crucified.
Mm-hmm.
I got that side too. Like there's nuance to the nuance in a way. But if a certain bad event went down, and you were like, it's either like abolish all police or give all police raises was the only two opinions you could have, or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you didn't say anything, you're like, your silence says everything. That means you're just as bad as a murderer if you didn't say anything. I remember that feeling kind of pressured into having an opinion in the past a couple of times. And I feel like that was like early days of like how segmented the country feels now, which I don't like. I definitely am on team togetherness somehow, some way, even though I don't want to like be siding with somebody who, wishes somebody else's life not to exist or something like that. The nuance dies there to me. But if there's any hope for us, there's some kind of we need to move forward together as a country. Otherwise, it feels very dangerous to me.
Well, and I'm also I think my weakness there is I can be convinced by data. So my coworkers once identified that I like data more than my own opinions, which is kind of funny because it's true. It's like if you can like give me some good data that actually shows, this is a bad idea or this is a better solution, I'm open to hear it, so it's just in certain situations, it's like, I don't necessarily have like a hot reaction or hot take. It's more like, I kind of want to just see data or understand more. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Instagram is forever trying to sell me a t-shirt that says that wasn't very data driven of you.
Oh, that's a good shirt. I'm now, my ads have taken a nosedive, dude. There's a lot of like, even when I had a dog, and it's all like, you need to feed your dog real human food, like a chopped up steak every night. That's the only way. Buy it from us. And that was, okay when I had a dog, and then my dog died and it still gave me those ads, and I was like, that's not cool. And now I have dogs, and I'm like, I don't want this ad. I don't need to spend more on these dogs. But I don't know, maybe it is good for my dog, but
maybe.
But once you give them the food, they're gonna want it every day. You know what I mean? So
kind of, yeah. That's is it true, or is it in your brain, or is it both?
Yeah.
I was always the kind of you'd call me a jerk, but I was when I put food out for a dog and it didn't eat it, and I was like, well, you ain't hungry enough then, dog.
Yeah.
You get hungry, you're gonna eat that. So
yeah.
All right. Well, that's just because I'm a jerk, I think. Let's do some questions. We had Sela Brennan wrote in, what are your thoughts on when to use view transitions versus CSS animations or the web animation API? It seems like view transitions are ideal for page navigation animations, but I wonder in what other areas they excel. Firefox support for view transitions could drop in 2020-25. I think this was written before that it was announced that it's going to be an interop. At least the same page transitions are. So it probably will drop in 2025 for Firefox. So this feels like something to start thinking about. I guess the root of the question is like a versus. There's a VS in there, view transitions versus something like CSS animations or the web animations API. Do they need to be a versus thing? Sometimes you could accomplish the same thing with both, but they do feel relatively distinct to me.
I think it's sort of an improv thing, like both and, or yes and. Yes, use them and use the other one. Yeah, I think I had a post I was writing on this. I'm trying to radically eliminate nuance.
State, so at least if we keep it to the on-page animations, because that's the only thing that's worth comparing here, because CSS animations or the web animation API, they cannot do cross-page animations. it's not possible. Unless what you're doing is not actually changing pages. You're faking some single page application like thing, and then you can use those things, but let's keep that out of it. If we're just talking about animations that are currently on the page, they certainly excel at different things, but view transitions is stateful. I think a classic is like, I need to reorder this list, for example. And the way that I'm going to accomplish that reordering is by doing some DOM operations on it. Maybe 5 things are leaving the list and 3 things are being added to it, or the sort order is being changed. There's some fairly, the DOM, there's a before DOM and an after DOM. And if you just say view transition that, there's a beautiful thing that happens, and that even without doing much work at all, if each of those individual list items has a unique view transition name on it, they will move themselves into their new position from the before DOM to the after DOM, which is so cool. Mm-hmm. And if you're like, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to use the Web App Animations API to do it, you have a lot more work to do. It would be 10 times the amount of work to store that state yourself and calculate it and move them into the positions and have elements to maintain the previous position and stuff. It's just not really tenable. And so you'd use view transitions for that. But if your also goal was like, click this button and animate something to transform scale to, or scale to these days, sure, the Web Animations API is probably better at that, because, inventing a class name that's like scale to, applying it, and having a before DOM and after DOM for that, then that puts view transitions in the that's too much work category. I'll just use the Web Animations API to do it. They have their strengths.
Yeah, I started a post called "Sprinkle Some JavaScript is Dead." Good title. That's a good one. That's good, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But, and I don't know if this will end up in the final post, but just for animations, I just was talking about how you could approach other things, but animations would be use CSS to animate minor state changes, like hover and, a little blip, a glow or something. Use view transitions to animate major state changes and page navigations. So and then
I like this distinction. Yeah.
Otherwise, wrap it in a web component that handles animations. So you could think of and the web component is purely just from this is an isolated thing. It's a contained interaction, and I'm using GSAP or something in here that's going wild, or Web Animations API or whatever that's just going wild in here,
I see. So you've kind of you've said this component is for animation, and that's why I'm using it.
Yeah, or if you have don't use Lottie, but a Lottie animation or something like that, right. Lottie is super big, so don't Is it like a megabyte of JavaScript kind of thing? Yeah. When it's all you need is just a little bit of wow, it's just a mega JavaScript. So I don't know. I'm sure people are working on that. There's a new Framer Motion split off into React Motion, and then it's not just React Motion anymore, it's Motion, and I think they support a native JavaScript API. So so I would actually consider using Motion as well, but in the context of a web component, if you're trying to move something around and do something, so that would be a place to maybe consider using Motion. And if you can get your designers to prototype in Motion in Framer, then you should be good-ish. So
cool. Well, don't sleep on view transitions, Sheila. You're right. Think about those APIs. They're pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's
also pretty progressive enhancement friendly too. So yet another reason to not ignore it.
That's the progressive nature of it, right? Is CSS transitions, they're probably not going to fail. They're very small, but they could bomb out. View transitions might fail because they're big, but they fall back to just static page stuff, or static swaps, and then the other one is the sort of more extreme ones, just you need the success button to shoot off fireworks and then bloop into a thank you modal or something like that. That's maybe that's actually view transition, but you could, but the fireworks can be something else. It doesn't have to be all one big thing. So
Yeah. All right. There's an interesting follow-up one here from Mark Root Wiley, friend of the show, I believe. Remember we were talking about typography and this Richard Rudder Todd's style sheet thing that was really neat that we saw, and I had just plucked out one tiny thing from it that I thought was interesting. That was kind of a reset, like when you're setting an at font face, that he specifically put in there font weight 1 space 1000. And the idea was that it's a nice general default to put in there because that's not the default, actually. I think normally it caps out at 900 or something is the default. But let's say you're using some variable font, and the variable font was designed to have a font weight that went up to 1,000 or beyond or something, that you'd be artificially kneecapping yourself by not including that, which is just an interesting little tiny tidbit. But Mark is kind of saying, he almost likes he didn't use kneecapping. There's probably a nicer word for that, but he said there's some people that think that maybe a font in the other direction is too low. So he says, I know a lot of people take the opinion that light font weights are considered harmful, and points out a CSS Tricks article we published back then about that. I think there's something to that. In my own projects, and especially in WordPress, which offers a font weight setting in the app of 100 to 900, I've explicitly resetting that to be 350 to 832, just some random numbers. He's like, why not? Intentionally taking advantage of the downstream restrictions. So if somebody were to attempt to use font weight 300, because you've set the font weight in the at font face to only go from 350 to 852, if you set font weight 300, it would get bumped up to 350 in this case. It's like a way of imparting a restriction at like
a min-max
font declaration
range
level. Yeah. Kind of neat. I don't know what to say about all that. If that's helpful, go for it.
I think that's a great idea. I think, and I think it's going to depend on the font ultimately. Like, did the typographer think about this? Because ultimately it depends on what, the whoever set up the font is doing. These aren't random scalars. These are like, they set them in the 100 or the 1 size and the 1000 size. That would be sort of like the question is like, how was the font set up? Because I think, but coming out of like the era of thin fonts, like the early 2012s or whatever, I feel like Apple was the driver of that maybe. Like those were way too thin and like lack contrast, and it was really hard to read. I mean, for some folks who have like blurred vision or something like that, that text literally could look invisible. Like it just, if you put gray text on a white or a gray background, it would just disappear, and it's all thin and faint. So that would be kind of, I like the idea of like per font sort of setting like min maxes, so people can't,
that's what it's for.
Get too clever. So,
although, can you do that for a variable access range? I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of just like these are the font weights that we cover here, but
Yeah. Although I'm not totally boned up on all this, so maybe there is. As a follow-up to that, remember we were talking about the advanced ATTR, the attribute function in CSS? Yeah. I did end up playing with that a little bit more, and this is reminding me of it. Let's say, you started supporting this and on your web components, for example, and you just had like a data font size attribute, and it let people just set the font size. Obviously, you plucked that off and used it as the font size in CSS. But let's say somebody put in font size 2 pixels or something, and you're like, well, that's too small, and you wanted to do the same type of thing that Mark is doing here. You're trying to prevent somebody from doing something that's inaccessible. Well, there's ways to do that. You can just use min. You could pluck that value off and say min 12 pixels or the value that was provided. Now all of a sudden they can't do 2. It's just going to get bumped up to 3. Or you could say, in my design system, we only do 4 pixel intervals. So, 4, 8, 12, 16, whatever. Because we want to impart that level of consistency. I don't know if design systems do that all the time, but maybe it is. You could use min and round as nested functions in CSS. You could say min is 12, and then round the value of the attribute to the nearest 4 pixel increment. It wouldn't even be that much CSS. It's a little one-liner. And I just was playing with that, and that type of stuff works just great these days. So just know that. Pretty neat.
Yeah, I still think it would be a good idea to like bake your scale in there, you know, like I want this to be like I have a base font size of 16 pixels and somebody just goes whatever text +2 or something, and then it just like goes bloop, like I add
right,
that
like
value
more of
to
an
the text
API
like,
kind of thing.
yeah, sort of just like an adder subtractor sort of how big do you want it? I want it +2 big, and it's like great, I'm going to do +2 times 2 or whatever, you know, like we just kind of you kind of play with that scale.
You could
or whatever.
design that system, I think, especially if you just said the value of the attribute has to be the value +2, because you could test that as a string and then apply styles based on it. But like, I think you're talking a little bit more complicated than that, where it pluck the value 2 off and actually use it somehow, rather than like just a random string identifier.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's clever to think about, but I haven't actually done it.
We could build some cool systems is kind of what I'm thinking. Just like it's a very cool tool. So, and it's funny because like when you first learn about content or whatever, you could like, I can do so much. And then like what one browser supported adder like a little bit, right? And then you're like, gosh, this is going to be great. And then your hopes are dashed because no other browsers supported it. But now it's like back and now it's better. So it's like I have to almost like reboot my 2013 brain or something to be like, what were all those cool ideas I had for adder like way back, you know? Mm-hmm. I still think grid area was going to be the best. Just be like, you know, header, grid area, header, done, boom, wow, it's in there.
Love it. I know what you mean, yeah.
But,
yeah, I wonder if that works, if that worked already, because header is a string.
it might have, yeah. I don't know.
I mean, you can now declare an adder as a string too, so I don't know. It's weird seeing those angle brackets in CSS, isn't it? Have you seen the syntax for it? Like if you're plucking off 13 pixels off an attribute, you have to say adder, data font size space, parentheses, angle brackets, length.
Yeah.
It just looks real weird.
It's types in CSS is
yeah,
cool.
Types are angle brackets. I'm glad that worked out. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I still love that CSS got types before JavaScript. So,
quite literally.
Yeah. Don't call it a language though. That would be silly. Should we do another question here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. Yochai Glick.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Love the show. Thank you for listening. You talked about AI completion. And first, I really sympathize with the struggle of surfing between classic autocomplete and AI autocomplete.
Maybe we should stop there on that one, just because it's interesting in that classic autocomplete versus AI autocomplete. Fascinating to me. Like you're typing, I don't know, you type document dot in a code editor. What do you want? Do you want a list
Add event listener?
Yeah, exactly. Probably, but I don't know what's gonna. That's probably what I want, but autocomplete or IntelliSense has been helping with that for a long time. You don't need AI for this at all, and maybe it's better not to use AI because it's like, it's not polluting
It's like
water.
predefined strings, basically. Like there's a structure, right? It's a
right, and it
big
knows.
JSON object or something.
Yeah, it's just kind of a solved problem in a way. But if you wait long enough, you're going to get, or perhaps it's getting faster and faster, but it really doesn't take long for most of these AI things to give you some ghost text after you've typed document dot. So what should it do? Should it give me I type the period, do I get the autocomplete menu? And then because the autocomplete menu is up, it won't offer AI? Like, should it win that menu? Or should it go the other way around, is that it shows it for a second, and then once the AI completion is ready, it closes the menu? Or should they overlap each other and have different completions? For example, tab usually is take the ghost text from AI, whereas in IntelliSense, you have to use your arrow keys and pick which one you want and hit return. So it's tab versus return. To me, that's a very interesting distinction and makes them not fight. It makes them visually fight a little bit, but not fight with key command. So tricky. Or can you like move the autocomplete down so it's not hiding the autocomplete? Anyway, they are at odds, and I don't know which should win or what, but they do need to kind of coexist, I think, because I wouldn't be like, turn off autocomplete. That's no good. I like autocomplete. I think it's a more like, responsible way to code almost. At least it'll be right for sure.
Yeah, right? Like it's a known attribute or whatever,
Right, exactly.
Like when you type CSS like in Web Inspector and you type B and it's going to show you background blend mode first for some reason instead of background, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, or biddy override or what? I like ones that you definitely don't need.
By direction, or whatever. Yeah, I think they fixed that, but they like weighted them or whatever. But so I think I think I like that more. I don't know. I am struggling with the latest Copilot update, and it's super aggressive, dude. And it puts all these green boxes and red text. It's like shoving an UI in there, and as like I'm trying to be chill. Generally, I'm like, yep, that's sort of what I was doing. But like, I don't know. It's kind of a coin flip, to be honest, if like it's doing what I want it to do. And then I've had this thing where like I type like an import and I think like, surely it's going to find the import and it'll auto import. So my red squiggly goes away, but it auto imported from some file that does not have an import. Like it auto imports from something weird. And so I don't catch that went in my Git commit, and then the CI breaks, and I'm just like, I've been having that problem regularly, and I'm just to the point where I might put a pre-commit, like build the whole damn project hook in there because I'm just dying. I'm dying to like, because if you lose the CI halfway through because of like some clearly bungled
line of code
import,
that you didn't even write,
dude, wasted 10 minutes of my whole life, Yeah. So
I generally like start typing the variable name or something, and then it's like, oh, that's a constant declared in your constants package. I'll put the import in there for you. Mostly like it, although in order to get it right, we've really had to do some fancy dancing at CodePen. For example, we have like barrel files or whatever. So like when we import a constant, the constants package might have folders in it. The constants for eight different areas of the site in a folder, and I don't want to import from @CodePen/constants/editor. I want to import from just @CodePen/constants. So there's a barrel file at the top of constants that like is like export star from
everything,
all these folders or whatever, which is nice. But then does VS Code know the right thing to do? Will it respect your barrel file, or will it drill down and try to get the import more fine grained? And the answer is, who knows?
Who knows?
Like that. Yeah.
So we actually want the opposite in ours because like we want you to go to the specific file just from because it's over importing when you do a barrel file kind of thing for us. Like
it can be depending on your bundler for sure.
So we're kind of trying to hyper target, right? And so it's just turning into a situation where we had to actually add a linter rule last night so that it would not pull from the root, like it wouldn't just go like /web component or, it would pull from like
imports must have 4 slashes.
Yeah. All imports must include this hexadecimal code. No, it's, I don't know. As these tools are getting smarter and that's cool. It is also like trying my patience, like just one hair at a time. It's just like, okay, oh boy, I'm going to, so I'm not going to be met.
Yesterday, I talked to the team at Augment, it's called. They are a VS Code plugin that's like a Copilot alternative deal. But of course, try to, convince you however they can that they do a better job, And I don't know if I'm not prepared to like just straight up answer that question, but I have been using it for like 3 weeks and I haven't found the need to leave it yet. Not that I think everything is perfect, but because Yochai is asking about some of this stuff. You're just asking autocomplete versus the AI autocomplete. But AI these days, I remember the good old days it was just autocomplete. Now it's so much more than that. Now it's like, okay, you select some code and you ask it to refactor refactor it, but you need to memorize what the key command is for that, because it doesn't always tell you or whatever. Maybe that's a special mode. Or you open it and it says something like add to chat or something, because you need to kick it over to the sidebar, and the sidebar it has more opportunity to like explain to you in text what's up. And that's something, and chances are those are using different models. Like the chat approach is going to use like a fancier, more expensive, slightly slower model. And then there's starting to be more and more like Augment doesn't have it yet, but like an agent mode where it uses even fancier model and goes slower and tries to reason out things. But then it's saying onto you, like you better know which mode you're using. Whereas the autocomplete just uses like the cheapest, fastest model they can have, because that thing's just getting hammered, because it's just every line of code you're on, it's suggesting stuff. I don't envy. I do think it's interesting, though. That's why I bring it up on the show. I mean, sorry, I don't make it the AI show, but to me, it's a lot about the UX of it. Just fascinated by it. And I think we've gone too far. I think the dial has turned too. There's too many different modes and stuff to think about. It's too much. Now that there's agent mode and chat mode and refactor mode and autocomplete mode and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, I can't. It's too much.
Well, you have to think about it. You make a code editor, so.
Yeah. And then the context is interesting too. Like a lot of them are just like, they just kind of guess the context. But in the case of Augment, I found it an interesting approach. Like I said, I'm not sure if I love it or not yet, but wouldn't you just assume that the context is like perhaps all your open tabs? But it's not necessarily. You'd have to add those individually or use one of their context, helper things to do that. But it's almost always your whole code base. And then you can add more. Have you seen this? You can add more stuff even than your code base. So like if your code base is just your folder, you can go like, but also go add my docs to it or something. Like you could export all your Notion docs or something and then add that to the context. A little bit interesting. Then there's like, if you select text, your selection text becomes part of the context too. It doesn't have to, but I like that. And I like being told specifically that it is, or reminded, because I'm like, yes, chances are if I have text selected and I'm thinking in AI, I'm like, please like give extra weight to this. I'm shining a spotlight on what I want you to be looking at. And then I learned that it even factors in where your little cursor is, then it's like that is extra weight too. So I think all this is very fascinating and not shaken out yet. I think it will take a couple of years to be like, this is the best way to do all this stuff. And
So I think we kind of just, I think it's all evolving still, so, and I think you had the explosion, the Cambrian explosion of like, we're all doing it, different ways. And then you're going to have the opposite sort of consolidation phase eventually. Right. So anyway, I do have a meeting though, Chris. The meeting has happened and I do have to attend. So we're going to have to finish. Sorry. Oh, no, but we'll have to finish Yoshai's follow-up there. Okay. Yeah, that was actually a really good question. Thank you. Because it was like that autocomplete versus AI autocomplete is super different, right? Like, so that's like just...
They are.
That's
fight.
A different world. That's a different world. Anyway, all right. So I do have to peel. So sorry, Shopping Maniacs. This one's gonna have to cut short. Thank you for downloading this in your park. Sure, shard it up, and then follow us on Mastodon or Blue Sky because those are the good ones. And then join us in the Discord, patreon.com/shop.show.
Well, have a good meeting, Dave. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.